Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, our surrogate changed her mind and is now demanding to keep our baby. I, 33 male, find myself in a difficult situation with my surrogate, Maria, 25 female, and I'm wondering if I'm the jerk in this situation. To provide some context, my husband, Roman, 37 male, and I decided to use a surrogacy to have a kid. We had a legal agreement in place, and Maria was compensated generously for her part in carrying our baby. Everything was going smoothly, and we were excited for our baby's arrival. However, around the 8th month of pregnancy, Maria dropped a bombshell. She declared that she no longer wanted to go through with the surrogacy and expressed her desire to keep the baby. This sent Roman into a fit of anger, but I managed to get him to step out, and I had a one-on-one conversation with Maria. I reminded her that she had legally signed the documents, and the baby was unequivocally ours, mine and Roman's. She began pleading with me, but I stood my ground, asserting that this baby was my son and not hers. She tried to bargain, saying she no longer wanted the money, but I firmly rejected her request, emphasizing that no one had coerced her into signing those papers. Whether she liked it or not, the baby was ours. To add some financial weight to my argument, I pointed out all the money we had invested in the baby and the substantial amount she received before the pregnancy. I made it clear that if she wanted the baby, she'd have to reimburse us for all of that, something I knew she couldn't afford. I suggested that if she had any more issues, she should speak to my lawyers, but as far as I was concerned, the baby was ours, mine and Roman's, whether she liked it or not. Maria called us cruel and even got her family involved to support her case. Now I'm doubting whether I'm in the wrong here. Roman supports my stance, but some of my friends and her family are calling me the jerk. So Reddit, am I the jerk in this situation? Edit. For clarification, she hasn't pursued legal action at all. This was a talk that we had with her. Edit 2. We live in California, where traditional surrogacy is allowed, as well as pre-birth and after-birth agreements. We have a pre-birth agreement, and by law, the baby is ours, and she knows it. She's asking if we would give up our rights for her to have the baby, which we won't. The baby is mine and my husband's. There hasn't been pursuit of legal action. She can now only talk through my lawyers. Unfortunately, this is why doctors will not allow the egg donor and the surrogate to be the same person. Who advised you to proceed in this manner? Due to her being the biological mother, your contact is potentially void. I would consider consulting with a family law attorney so your husband can plan to file for custody. If in the future you decide to have more kids, go with a surrogacy agent and separate egg donor so you can avoid this issue. OP is a man and says in the comments the surrogate is also the egg donor, i.e. the surrogate is the biological mother. OP has no biological relationship to the baby. His husband's seed was used with the surrogate's egg. People can downvote me all you want. The facts remain. Traditional surrogacy is much more legally complex than gestational surrogacy because the surrogate is the biological mother of the kid. In order for both intended parents to have parental rights for the kid, the non-biological intended parent will likely need to complete a step-parent adoption following the baby's birth. Am I the jerk for not giving my son the same opportunity due to his choices? My wife regularly uses Reddit and recommended that I post here because our family is split on who's in the wrong. I, 56 male, have 4 kids together with my wife, who's 54 female. We have 3 daughters, Chloe, who's 32, Wendella, who's 30, and Emily, who's 24. We also have 1 son, Lucas, who's 26. My wife and I have, since our kids were born, put in monthly payments into a college fund for them. The amount in the funds was enough to cover for all 4 kids' college education. Our kids all chose different paths in life, whether it was their degree, place of education, or what type of school. They all went with something different. When our oldest, Chloe, graduated high school, she talked to us about how she was unsure what she wanted to do with her life and had been thinking about taking a gap year. We talked with her and told her it was her choice, that if that was what she wanted, she could do it and not rush into education. She did take 2 years. During these years, she worked, and in agreement with me and my wife, she paid us $250 in rent each month to continue living with us. She still ate our food, we cooked for her, and still bought her necessities. The $250 were put in a savings account that we gave her access to when she and her now husband were beginning to talk about buying a home. Even though the situation was not the same with each kid, they all knew about this and the plan for how the money would be used. Wendella lived with us for 3 years after college. Emily lived with us during college. They both took part in this. The issue is with our son. He, like his oldest sister, wanted to take a gap year. We encouraged him to do so. He asked if he could stay with us. We told him yes, but told him about the rent situation. He was not happy with this, saying that he was our son and we should want him to live with us for how long he would need to. We explained what the money would be used for. He said he did not give a hoot. He was very angry with us for a long time and ended up staying with a friend of his. This all happened around 8 years ago. We have a good relationship now with both him and his wife, whom are expecting our first grandbaby. He recently brought up how all his sisters got money to buy a house, showed me pics of a house that he and his wife had been looking at. I said it looked nice, to which he responded with asking when I could give him the money. I told him that he made a choice when he was 18 and that he would not receive any money. He said that it was unfair and that he was young and dumb and should not be punished for it. I told him that I did not have that kind of money to just give him. He left the house after arguing a bit more. My wife and his sisters are all on my side. However, his wife and my mom have said that I'm in the wrong and I should want my grandbaby to have a place to live and should not punish him for mistakes that he made when he was younger. Am I the jerk for not giving him the money? Edit. When each kid got access to the rent money, it was in a savings account. However, before it was put in a fund so the money grew. Explained it really bad. Sorry. Many people have asked about this, so I'll add it here. He did go to college. I was at his graduation, and he uses his degree today. What the four of them choose to do with their college fund was up to them. But from my understanding, they all used it for college. If they did not, then they did not. I have never asked any of them for proof of what the money was used for. So that's why I can't say with 100% certainty that it did go towards their college. Third edit. I'm very grateful for all of the advice. I will sit down with my wife and ask her how we should go in about this. Not the jerk. You can't give what you don't have. These are two different situations. Out of curiosity, did he ever go to college and did you pay for some or all of it? OP. He did go to college. From my knowledge, the amount saved in the fund was enough for his whole education plus a bit left over. You did not give your daughters money when they purchased homes. You gave them money your daughters had paid you and you saved for them. You did not pay any of your own money towards their homes. Your son was angry that you were going to charge him rent, so he left. He never paid you a cent in rent, so you did not have money to save for him to use for the future. You did pay for his college. Not the jerk. Not the jerk at all. From what I understand, you never gave the other kids money. You just kind of held on to their own money and gave it back to them. Dude should have taken your offer. If you're looking to adopt any more adults, I can 100% do that rental agreement with you. Not the jerk. He was legally an adult when he made his choices at 18. He was mad at paying rent to you, knowing full well that the rent money would be put aside for him to use later. He split. His actions have consequences, and instead of being mad at you, he should be mad at himself. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his son? Please let us know. My wife cheated on me, and I don't know what to do. I'm 30, male. My wife, who's 31, of 5 years, cheated on me last year with her friend when she was out with her friend group. She used to do this often, but always came back around 12 a.m. But this time, she came home very late, at around 5 a.m., very drunk, and I didn't press the issue that night. She was distant and didn't talk much to me afterwards the next few days. I only found out a couple days later when she confessed to cheating after I kept asking her why she was so cold to me. I was shocked. I never liked the fact that she went out to bars and clubs, but she never gave me a reason to distrust her until that night. I immediately grabbed a bag, packed some stuff, and I left. She was begging me to talk about it, but I wasn't in the mood for it. I was angry, upset, sad, and I know that I wasn't in the right headspace for this kind of talk, so I stayed with a friend. Fast forward a few days later, and I agreed to talk to her. She said she was so sorry and would never do it again, and that she would do anything to make me stay. I spent the time I was away thinking of staying or leaving, and I hate the fact that I still love her. We don't have kids together, but part of me still wanted to stay. I gave her certain conditions if she wanted me to stay. The first one is to never see the man that she cheated on me with ever again. The second was that I could see her phone or computer anytime I wanted without having to ask. The last one was that she could no longer go out to bars or clubs without me. She agreed to all of this. Over the last year, she's been estranged from her friend group because she can't go out with them without seeing the man that she cheated on me with, and she hasn't really made any new friends. I haven't checked her phone or computer either. I know she likes to go out, so I try my best to go out with her when I have time. The bar and club scene was never my thing, but I try to enjoy it with her. Things haven't been the same as before, and I've thought about losing the "she can't go out without me" rule, but I keep thinking of what she did. I've explained this to my friend, and she said I should just divorce her if I can't trust her anymore. I thought about it. I wasn't as happy as I used to be. She says she's happy with me around, but she isn't as energetic as she used to be. So, am I the jerk? To clarify some things that were asked, our relationship before seemed pretty good. I was never the club and bar kind of person, but me and my wife enjoyed going out to different places. We were both very outdoorsy. We often went camping, climbing, hiking, among other things. We also liked taking trips around the country and sometimes abroad. We also had date nights once or twice a week. We both work from home, so we often had a good amount of free time. We aren't rich or anything, but we do fine. Also, to clarify something, we don't have kids and we don't want kids. When it came to our love life, I thought it was decent. The only thing we didn't share was her habit of going out to bars and clubs. And now to her friends. Some of you were under the impression I told her to see none of her friends. I only told her to stop seeing the man that she cheated with. At first, I didn't know exactly why she became estranged with the whole group. They were all part of the friend group. I met all of her friends, including the man in question. From what I know about him, he was a player. Nothing happened between him and my wife before, but I never liked the fact she went out so often with this guy, even if it was in a group setting, especially with drinking involved. I did bring this up to her, and she told me there was nothing to worry about, and that this was just insecurity talking. Our relationship now. We've gone out hiking a few times and gone out together on dates, but not nearly as often anymore. I just haven't felt the desire to. Our love life is pretty barren as well. I've talked to my wife, and we both reflected on our relationship. She still claims she wants to stay with me and would respect my conditions no matter what. I asked her what she would do if I let go of the conditions. She told me she's truly ashamed of what happened, and she said she probably wouldn't go to a club or a bar alone anymore. I asked about her old friends, and she told me that she doesn't want to be with their friend group anymore. She told me that they thought she was being unreasonable for not wanting to see the guy anymore, and that's just how he is. Basically, they refused to cut the guy off, and they didn't like that my wife had a problem with him. I never asked her about this before because I didn't care about how my condition was met. All that I cared about was that it was met. I've opened up a bit more and how our life now is pretty dull. She said she's aware of our relationship not being the same as it was before. I asked her if she wants things to change, but she said she doesn't feel that she has the right to ask me for anything. She said she's aware it's her fault our relationship is like this. I mentioned couples therapy, and she immediately said it was a good idea. I still resent her, but from what I can tell, she does want to make this work. I can't fully trust her yet. I still remember when she first said that there was nothing to worry about. We decided to start couples therapy. I'll be honest though, the only reason I'm willing to do this is because she's followed my conditions for a year, but I don't think this is going to help me trust her ever again. If therapy doesn't work, then I'll leave. Did she ever say why she went home with him? It's good that she regrets it, but what caused her to give in to that desire? What was she feeling or thinking? OP, this is a good question. I haven't asked her. I'll bring this up in therapy when I get the chance. Are any of her friends married or in serious relationships? Their flippant disregard by saying that's just how he is makes it sound like they've taken a turn. Before she cheated, did she ever mention him hooking up with other members of the friend group? Honestly, with their attitude about the whole thing, I wouldn't want her to be around them any more than I would the affair partner. It sounds like she is owning up to it, and she confessed without being caught. I am 100% about cheaters can never be trusted, but she sounds far more serious than I've seen. I am, for once, glad to hear that you're going to try therapy. You deserve happiness, so if you two can work it out and be happy, that's awesome. If therapy helps you see that you'll never be happy together again, then you won't waste any more time. Good luck. OP. As far as I know, only one of the girls besides my wife was in a serious relationship. She mentioned him hitting on all of them in the group and was constantly trying to pick up women at clubs and bars that they went to. Besides that, I don't know much else. I'm not exactly keen on knowing the details of this guy's life. I'm still just not getting why he didn't just divorce her. He said he doesn't feel the same. Their love life is gone. He doesn't feel very strongly about her anymore. Just rip the band-aid off and divorce her. No amount of counseling or therapy will fix what happened. Am I the jerk for sending my nephew home for disrespecting me after everything I've done? My fiance and I have been having a set of our own issues for months. We have 3 kids who are 9, 5, and 2. Recently, his mom, who helps take care of his nephew who's 12, has been just dropping him off at our house without calling or getting permission. The last several times I just let it go, but once he stayed for a week straight during fall break. I finally had to send him home because school was starting again. Then I took him Halloween trick-or-treating and found out that they haven't had electricity or water for well over a month. And he told me he had no clothes or food. Without hesitation, I took him to my house and set a plan to take him to school the following week and worked it all around my work schedule because my fiance couldn't. I told the grandmother and let her know that he was fine. I took him shopping and got him all kinds of new clothes. He stayed for over a week, and I noticed he wouldn't get off of our PS5, refused to take showers, and didn't listen to me about much of anything. He also refused going to school for me. He even missed 2 days because he refused. It stressed me out. My fiance was no help, didn't enforce anything, never asked if I needed any help. I had to do it all by myself on top of work and my own kids. I finally hit my breaking point. It was Sunday today, church. I worked until 9 a.m., came straight home to get everyone ready for church at 11. My fiance is of course watching football and acts like he couldn't lift a finger, but okay, I did it. Got everyone in the car and he has a bad attitude. Go to the gas station where he keeps making slick remarks and I finally snap back. I'm overwhelmed. I'm dealing with all this and he's done little to nothing with me. He gets out of the car and starts walking down the highway. I of course pull up to him and tell him to get in the car. His nephew starts trying to get out of the car to walk with him. I tell him no, that's not safe, just please stop. My fiance gets back in and is livid with me and says I've been being a jerk. And his nephew immediately chimed in saying, "Oh yeah, I definitely agree." I cut him off and said basically to stay out of it. My daughter comes to me after we get home and tells me she didn't want him staying at our house anymore because he had told her and my fiance that he never really liked me and I've always been stuck up and he can't stand me. So basically I lost it. Not at them of course, but I called the grandma and said I couldn't do it today or right now. I won't be disrespected like this in my own home from anyone. But my fiance says I'm a jerk, basically for sending him back home. I just don't know how much more I can take. Not the jerk. Send your fiance back to his mummy as well until he learns to stop being a useless drain on your household. Sorry sis, I'd be dropping the fiance as well. You have a much bigger problem on your hands than a rude nephew and I expect you know that already. Please prioritize your and your kids' well-being and don't let anyone interfere with that. Anyone. Not the jerk. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that if she's so upset about my kid not sharing her toys, they could find another place to live? I'm a single mom to Emmy, who's 6. Emmy is my only kid. She's been sick since she was 2, and if I'm going to be honest, she likely won't make it to 10. Her dad left us when she got sick. Emmy spends 1 week in the hospital, then a week at home. Because of this, the last time I was able to send her to school was 2 years ago, when we were able to do preschool 3 hours a day, 2 days a week, and they still wore masks. Now the only time she's around other kids is when she's in the hospital. Emmy hates sharing her toys, so I try not to make her do it. Usually when we see her cousins, I'll buy something like a big pack of chalk and a gallon of bubbles, and I'll tell her it's for everyone, but that's the only time she'll share. My sister and her 2 daughters, 5 and 7, are living with us temporarily. It's been difficult for everyone. At first, I switched rooms with Emmy, and we put all 3 girls in the master. But Emmy hated sharing rooms and said the other girls were always touching her stuff, so we switched back, and I put the girls in the spare room with their mom. My sister was complaining that the room was too crowded, so she's staying on a cot in my office, but apparently that's also uncomfortable, so she wants the girls to share again. My sister does not pay any rent. Her husband sends $500 a month to help pay for their groceries, and she helps with Emmy while I'm working. My job is pretty flexible, so I'm able to watch her while I work. They've also been complaining that I take Emmy on day and weekend trips without them. Emmy just spent the week in the hospital and we came home on Saturday. My niece's beds were moved into Emmy's room and her toys were everywhere. I confronted my sister and she said Emmy isn't using her room or her toys half the time and that the kids should be sharing with each other. I told her that Emmy has already made it clear that she does not want to share her room or her toys and that her room needs to be the way we left it by the end of the day. She says I'm being unfair, so I snapped at her that I will be prioritizing my kid over her ungrateful self and her kids, and that if she can't get over my kid not sharing, she needs to find somewhere else to live. They did fix Emmy's room, but they haven't been talking to us. At this point, I'm thinking about kicking them out anyways. Am I the jerk for telling her she needs to get over my kid not sharing or move out? Not the jerk. They're not talking to you? Really? In your house that they're living in rent-free? Kick them out. Also, I'm very sorry that your daughter is so unwell. Not the jerk. You made it clear to your sister that your daughter has boundaries, and good on you for sticking to them, and she still disrespected them. While she was in the hospital, no less. The only thing that I can think would make you the jerk here is your sister's kids. Why do they live apart from their father? Is he and your sister on a break since you referred to him as her husband still? Regardless, kicking out your adult sister would be one thing, but if that further uproots her daughters, I would say you're a bit of a jerk. Now that I make $300,000 a year, my wife wants to combine incomes. I, 31 male, recently completed my PhD in postdoc position. I didn't make much money during that period, about $26,000 annually for my PhD and about $32,000 while I was working as a postdoc. My wife, who's 30, who I married about when I got my PhD, makes a ton more money than I do, or made a ton more money than me. She made about $100,000 per year while we were together, so quite a bit of a gap. She also came up with the idea that we should put some of our income for ourselves and some for our family, and this would be proportional to our income to keep it fair. She always got a bit fancier stuff than me, and I was pretty jealous. I didn't voice it to her, which I guess I should have, but I don't understand how she never realized it. I don't want to reveal too much information, but while I was working as a postdoc, I made connections with a couple people who were starting up a company. Long story short, last year I made $300,000 without including my stake in the company. It's obviously risky, but I think the risk has paid off for me at least. I did get a Tesla Model S, which I'm entirely paying with my own money, including the insurance, and I'm starting to buy more expensive stuff for me too, and it honestly feels amazing. Now she's asking if we should just combine our incomes and each get the same amount of our money, which feels like total BS to me. She wants to eat her cake and have it too, and I just said no, she wasn't being fair. She then went on a spiel about equity, which I honestly did not listen to. I mean, she is allowed to make that suggestion, but I'm allowed to say no, right? Am I the jerk? Edit. I pay 3/4 of our bills now. I lived on my own. Housing was paid for by the university when I was a grad student. Holy cow, you're the jerk. First, you wouldn't tell her how you felt about the arrangement. Got angry when she couldn't read your mind. Now you're refusing to even listen to her? You're an adult. Communicate. Not the jerk. But you guys can probably start paying half of the bills each. No more of this proportionate to your income BS. Everyone sucks here. You're married. You have both looked at the other and said, yeah, this is the person I want to spend my life with in a partnership of equals. Then you both have been doing your absolute best to make it as unequal as possible. You're the jerk. You expected your wife to be a mind reader and resented the fact that she bought nicer things than you. If you wanted something you couldn't afford, you could have asked, and if she loved you, she probably would have said no problem. You were working on the PhD and postdoc for what, 8 years? During that time, she supported you, kept a roof over your head and food on the table. She made it possible for you to concentrate on your studies and earn your PhD. The only thing you're going to earn now is a divorce. Hope that's what you want. You're the jerk. Of course you want to hog all of the money now that you're the one making more. Why are men so selfish and greedy when it comes to money? Also, buying yourself a new Tesla? Did you buy her one too? You must be a slave to that ghoul Elon. Figures with how greedy you are. Let me guess, you order everything on Amazon too instead of supporting local businesses? But yay, my capitalism, right? You could have easily gotten a Civic or something and got your wife something nicer, like a BMW for putting up with all your BS and cheapskateism. Cheapskateism? The good thing is now, when she leaves you, she can take you to the cleaners for alimony with that big boy salary that you got lucky with. You're probably the kind of jerk that makes people call you doctor, even though you're just a rich boy whose parents paid for his schooling. Wish I'd had a rich mommy and dada to buy me a PhD. Instead, I'm stuck working my butt off at Dollar General for $7.50 an hour just to feed my kids McDonald's every night, which I know isn't good for their diabetes, but it's literally all we can afford right now. 90% of my salary goes to paying for daycare so that I can go to work. It's almost like it cancels itself out. And people wonder why we steal from our jobs. Any cash transaction I get, you bet your butt I'm voiding the transaction and pocketing that money. But what would you know about struggles, rich boy? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Why do I feel like we're at the zoo when we read Reddit comments? They refused me an office. I complied. They regretted it. I got my first grown-up job while I was finishing my bachelor's degree. I was just getting started in a highly technical and emerging field. Very few people back then were doing this kind of work, and I seemed to have an aptitude for it, which is probably why I got a job before I had any credentials. The department I was hired for was brand new and had the potential to take customers from other departments, while also generating net new business. Interestingly, the other departments had been offered the opportunity to start the service themselves, but refused, even actively trying to prevent it from happening. That's the reason I ended up in a malicious compliance situation. The leaders of all the other departments conspired to prevent me from getting an office. I didn't understand at first, because at that age, I didn't imagine professionals did petty, immature things. When I realized what was happening, I knew they'd get exposed if I went along with it. So I happily did my job wherever I could find a place, which often ended up being in the mailroom, where lots of people would notice. I hoped, maybe, that leaders would start to feel guilty or annoyed and change their minds, or they'd be caught by their bosses. Either way, problem solved for me without a fight. Little did I know how well it would go. I started to be well liked by a lot of the leaders because I helped them with their computers. There was one leader who still inexplicably hated me. I never spoke with him, not even one word, but he continued to insist I did not need an office. I wasn't even the level of secretary, according to him, which I took to be a dig at my lack of a degree. I heard about him saying that from a friend who was in the meeting when they talked about changing their minds. It's too bad for them they didn't change their minds, because the president came through the mailroom multiple times and finally stopped, clearly annoyed. "Why don't you work in your office?" That was my golden moment. I had complied politely with not having an office. I sweetly told the president, "I don't have an office." "What? Why not?" "There isn't room. No space available." "According to whom?" "Mr. So-and-so." "But you've been working here for what, 3 months? They could have found space for you by now." Oh, the president was beet red at that point. I just smiled and said my understanding is there is no space. The president literally stomped upstairs to the offices of Mr. So-and-so. I distinctly heard the yelling from downstairs. People outside probably even heard it. The president came and brought me upstairs to the conference room where the leaders were all seated looking down. There was a pile of keys on the table. I was afraid at that point. Was he having me pick someone's office to take? While that might have been sweet revenge, it wouldn't have been good for my working relationships with any of them. But no, she handed me a key to the conference room and said, "This is your office." She scooped up the rest of the keys, which I learned later were all of their copies of the key to the conference room, and said, "Your office is the largest office on campus, even bigger than mine. Enjoy." And she walked out. That was probably the best drop the mic moment I've ever seen in my life, and the story ends with my compliance not only winning me that office, but all the other leaders, except Mr. So-and-so, becoming great colleagues. Edit, follow up. I mentioned in the comments that there was another chapter to this story that I guess sort of puts a bow on it. One sunny day, about 6 months later, Mr. So-and-so passed me on the stairs outside the building. I was leaving and said good morning to him. We were the only two people, or so I thought. I wouldn't pass by a coworker like that without a polite greeting. I was in my office, quietly analyzing some data about an hour later, when, once again, the furiously red-faced president stormed into my office. I swear she was 12 feet tall in her anger. She demanded, "What's going on with you and Mr. So-and-so?" My heart was racing at probably 150 beats per minute, and I couldn't comprehend her question. "What do you mean, what's going on? I have no idea what you're talking about." I started to imagine she was accusing me of having a relationship with this man, and just, ew. She said she wanted to know why he just said what he said about me. I was perplexed. "I'm sorry, I still have no idea what you're talking about. I never have more than a greeting to say good morning worth of conversation with Mr. So-and-so. I can't think of anything whatsoever that he would have said about me." She told me that my sibling had just burst into her office raging about Mr. So-and-so. Turns out when I walked by him and continued on, the next person he encountered was my sibling, but he didn't know that. We both worked for the same company, but I was married and we had different last names. If he bothered to get to know me at all, he would have known that. He walked right up to my sibling and says, "There goes that jerk with her head in her backside." He assumed, I guess, that everyone else hated me too. He barely knew my brother, but felt comfortable saying that. So, my brother walked right into the president's office, interrupting a meeting, and repeated what Mr. So-and-so said. The president assumed that I was aware, but my brother hadn't gotten to me yet, and I didn't realize just how much Mr. So-and-so hated me. I told the president I genuinely didn't believe it was really about me. It could be because we never spoke. It had to be about what I represented, which was a major change to the organization. She walked to his office, then more yelling ensued. Pretty soon, they were back in my office. He apologized, and I repeated what I told the president, that I didn't believe it was really about me. Mr. So-and-so agreed. Later on, I had a project with him, and he started to trust me. We ended up being able to work together with no further issues. Insane Karen tries to make me her son's girlfriend. This happened about a year ago when I was 14 over winter break, and I was on vacation in Japan. Hence, this will all be roughly translated from Japanese. I was at the park sitting by myself on a bench, drinking hot chocolate and listening to music when this guy tapped me on the shoulder. For the sake of anonymity, we'll call him Ethan. Ethan, hi. I was in the zone from listening to music, so it took me about 10 seconds to register there was a human behind me. Me, hello. Ethan, sorry if this comes off as creepy, but there's ice skating around here, and I don't really want to go alone. Would you mind going with me? I can pay for you. I looked at this kid for a second before agreeing. He was cute, so I was surprised he didn't have anyone else to go with him. Me, sure, but do you mind if I ask my dad first? Ethan, sure, no problem. So I called my dad, and he just asked me a few questions about the area, which I relayed on to him, then back to my dad a couple times. After my dad agreed, we started walking and talking, though it was only like a 2-minute walk. We arrived, paid for ice skate rentals, and started skating when suddenly I hear the voice of what seems to be a nice lady. Entitled Mom. Ethan, sweetie, you forgot your gloves. She started running over to him, so I decided to do a lap to let them talk for a second when I hear Ethan yell to me. Ethan, Mitsuki, come meet my mom. Me, sure. I skated over, and as I did, I noticed he was whispering something to her. So then I skated over, and she just kind of looked at me. Entitled Mom, looking at Ethan. Why are you talking to this American girl? I told you, you can only date Asian girls. I was surprised for a couple of reasons. One, I may not be as Asian as they are, but it's obvious I am Asian. Two, he called me by my name, Mitsuki, a very obvious and fairly common Japanese name. Three, he called me over in Japanese, to which I replied in Japanese. And yet, with all of this, she thought I couldn't understand her. I sat and listened for a second before the mom turned to me and said in the most thick Japanese accent I've ever heard, "Leave my son alone." The son protested for a couple seconds before his mom gave that, "I'm gonna count to 10 look. I just looked at her dead in her eyes. Me, if you need to say something to me, at least make it understandable. I said this in Japanese. Suddenly, Mom turned a shade of red that I've never seen before. She stayed silent for a few seconds before looking at me. You speak Japanese? Me, yep, I am Japanese. Then, you would be perfect for my son. Me, I'm sorry, what? This lady's entire personality just switched in a nanosecond from go away to date my son. Entitled Mom, you heard me. My son needs a girlfriend, so he's not a loser in class, and a Japanese girl like you would do great. Me, I'm sorry, but I was instantly cut off. Ethan was just standing still. It doesn't matter. Look at my son. He's so handsome. Ethan, Mom, shut up. She doesn't want to. Leave her alone. You brat. I'm just trying to help you, so you don't end up as a disappointment like your older brother. They kind of yelled back and forth for a minute, while I sat there like a side character in a movie, just watching. You will date him, right? Me, I don't live in Japan. Also, I like women. I said that with zero emotion, because I was tired of this lady. No more words were exchanged. Ethan was dragged away while apologizing and telling me to just return the skates when I was done. Am I the jerk for refusing to change our custody agreement? My ex and I share 50-50 custody of our son, who's 9. Basically, we have him every other week. She also has a 5-year-old from her second marriage. They're divorced too, and the divorce arrangement is like ours, except she gets the 5-year-old on the week that I have the 9-year-old. Her second ex-husband refused to work around our custody agreement, so my ex asked me to change ours. This is a huge deal, and the reality is that I cannot just sign off on it. If I just say okay, then she'll start asking for more accommodations at my expense. I told her to think about what she's going to offer me to go along with this plan. She got mad that I wouldn't just do it. Honestly, if she would have offered me something like an extra holiday, then I'd just go along with it. She even said that she wasn't going to pay my legal fees because a judge has to sign off on any custody changes in our state. Now she's upset, and I don't care. Edit. Both boys are just as happy being together than not. Why? Because they both get to have their parent all to themselves, and my relationship with my son is more important than with his brother. I work in a family law office, and dealing with jerks like you is the worst part of the job by far. Instead of doing what's in the best interest for your kids, like preserving a healthy co-parenting relationship that will make your kids' lives materially better, you're choosing to be a major jerk. Worst of all, it's the kids that usually suffer the most when you have a parent being a grade A jerk like you are. You're the jerk all the way. Your "forget you, got mine" attitude disgusts me. I'm sort of curious about one thing, as I don't know family practice. If OP continues to be obstinate, doesn't the ex have the option to petition the court for a change in the custody agreement? Seems to me that if that is so, then OP is setting himself up for some unneeded legal fees down the road. In most states, yes, she could also use this thread to show the judge his attitude. You're the jerk. Your son should be growing up with his sibling. He's a human being, not a bargaining chip. Your relationship with your son is more important than his relationship with his brother? Read that back to yourself, OP. Hard, you're the jerk. Instead of trying to establish a healthy co-parenting dynamic, you're just doing this to be petty. And I bet you're doing it so your ex doesn't have a week off. This isn't a competition. Let your son spend time with his brother. There will come a day where you need your ex's support. This is very short-sighted. You're the jerk. My parents were divorced, and I distinctly remember my dad being a jerk. And there was a period of time my brother would be with my dad and I would be with my mom. And then we would switch, and I never got to see my brother. I hated my dad for it. You sound just like him, a narcissistic jerk who only cares about yourself, and your son will resent you and not have much of a relationship with you as an adult. Not the jerk. Look, man, you don't have to change any custody agreement just because she's pressuring you to do so. If the roles were flipped and you were the mother and the father was the one trying to pressure you into changing custody so he could have a full week away from both of his kids, all these Reddit fools would be siding with you, saying to not let him pressure and control you. You're honestly doing her a favor by not switching up. If you did switch weeks and she had a whole week off to herself, she'd be popping out another kid before you know it, and based on her relationship history, it would only be a matter of time until man number 3 splits on her too. You can only stay with a train wreck of a person for so long, as you and her second husband realized. Then, she'd have 3 kids that she wants to get rid of instead of 2. Next time she gets a serious boyfriend, if you get the chance, try to let him know what kind of a person she is. The last thing you want is for another innocent dude to end up tied to this crazy like you and her other ex-husband. And to all you Reddit morons who are calling this guy the jerk, I hope you're in the same situation one day. Then again, with the lack of spine that most of you have, you probably would just do whatever she tells you to. Weakness is hilarious. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his ex? Please let us know. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.